Hey guys, Dan from Xservice here. Today, in the second episode of Pwn Defend, we're going to look at some pivoting. This is going to demonstrate us moving from a dirty position, uh, attacking a multi-home device, and then enumerating the target network. So what I'm going to do here is just show off a few techniques. We're going to use our previously compromised credentials against this Linux target here. As you can see, we've got a connection through. The first thing I wanted to show is once we've got an SSH session into a target network, if we're on a Linux box, there's a few things we can do. Now, if you're lucky, Nmap is installed on the box. So I've already installed this in the lab, so I'm just going to do a quick demo. And we're going to scan the target subnet. And as you can see, loads of ports open on a few hosts. However, you may not be so lucky. You may need to rely on living off the land a little bit, and in which case we can use Netcat as a port scanner. Now, I'm going to try and demo this against one target here, which is a domain controller. We're going to set our our response wait time for 1. Now, this could cause some false positive results, but for the sake of the demo, it's going to be much quicker. When you've got time in your hands, you can set that higher. Now, we're going to scan ports, and I was going to say 1. We're going to choose to scan ports 440 through to 446. That'll work a lot better with the actual command. You can see here Netcat trying to connect to each different port in that range. And on port 443 we have a success, and on port 445 we have a success. If we want to run this a bit smarter, we can dump the errors and we can grep for succeeded. Which is a bit nice to look at and a bit neater, especially if we're enumerating and scanning 1,000 ports or the full 65k range. If we want to put that to a file, we can do the same thing, but we can just output to output.log. One thing I do is often I use the logging feature of Terminator to grab output as well, makes it quicker. But here we can see we've got an output file, we can cat that, and we can see that on 192.168.1.29, TCP 443 and TCP 445 are open. So great stuff. We can live off the land. However, we may want to use some tools on our attacker box, which is highly likely. So we're now going to look at using an SSH pivot. Now, to run this, we're going to use SSHUTTLE. It's actually SSHUTTLE. So it's a bit of a pain to say, but SSHUTTLE for all intents and purposes. We're just going to run this now against the target. You will need to have downloaded this from GitHub beforehand. You can do that. Sorry, you can do that through apt-get install SSHUTTLE. So Helios at 192.168.3.4 and the target subnet at 192.168.20/24-VV, and we have a connection established. So let's split our window. Let's split that vertically instead. Going to give some bit of a better font, and we're going to see what we can do on target. Now, one thing you're going to be tempted to do is just black out an nmap scan, and I'm going to show you why that's not really going to help you. 192.168.20/24. We want to see some output, so it gives some verbosity. And if we try a standard SYN scan, we're going to see, hang on a second, helps if I authenticate first. Right, cool. Now we've got a connection established. We're going to rerun that scan command, and on the left-hand pane, we're not really seeing any traffic. So we can't particularly use Nmap reliably in that instance. We need to potentially use a different scan. You can try ST, and we can try some specific ports. So we know 443, 445. We can give them a go. Oh, ICMP doesn't work through SSH tunneling, so we need to turn off ping. And now we can see that we've got a load of traffic coming through. So the interesting thing here, though, is you've got open ports designated on every IP that we scanned. So that's not very, well, it's not accurate, it's not reliable, and it won't help you with your enumeration. So the best thing to do is to enumerate locally through the SSH connection, then use your attacker box to run some tools. So I'm just going to show an R desktop connection, and we're going to pick 192.168.2.29. And you can see here we've connected through to a domain controller. Excellent stuff. That's the first pivot complete. Now that's not the only way we can use. We can also use another tool called PROXYCHAINS. So PROXYCHAINS is a more specific configuration in this instance. What we're going to do is proxy our connections through a single local port to the remote server. Now, to do this, we run SSH-D. We need to pick a port number. So I've done D9050. The target username at the target IP address. Whack our credentials in, and now you can see we're connected. I'm just going to split this again. Now on our attacker machine, we're going to need to do some configuration. So we need to configure etc proxychains.conf. And down here we have proxy list. And you can see I've already configured this. We've put a SOX4 proxy in on 127.001.9050. We're going to bomb out of that. We now need to run any application we want to use via proxy chains. So proxy chains, Firefox. We're then going to see our Firefox connection come up. We're now going to demonstrate that we can now get to the target subnet, to the super secret intranet from the first episode. So that's proxy chains, really in a nutshell. That's going to give you dynamic ports access locally from your attacker machine. Great for browsing web targets, etc. You do have to remember to configure that etc proxychains.conf though. Excellent stuff. Right, so we've gone through SSH connections, we've gone through some enumeration using Netcat, we've used SSHUTTLE, we've used proxy chains. The final demo we're going to give is a quick connection using Metasploit. Now, what I'm going to demonstrate here is a few different things, and that's not just the use of forwarding and auto routing through Metasploit. We're also just going to quickly use Unicorn as well to get a shell on our target. So now we're going to attack our Windows box. We may have got this through a phishing campaign. We may have been able to directly compromise the target or steal credentials in another manner. For example, using responder, cracking the hashes, etc. For now, though, I'm just going to make the assumption that we have an ability for someone to run a command of our choosing on the target. So I'm just going to load Metasploit. We're going to need to get a Unicorn payload generated. I'm not going to try and pretend to type this out all at once. So I've previously downloaded Unicorn. You can get that from GitHub. I'll post the links. We're going to run Python, Unicorn, Windows, interpreter, reverse underscore HTTPS. And we're going to put our attacker IP and attacker port. Clearly, we don't want to run everything over TCP. We clearly don't want to use ports that are unlikely to get out. So port 1337, port 444 in a real environment are highly likely going to get you caught by the blue team. So you're going to want to use something that's HTTPS encrypted and on the correct port. So we're just going to generate the payload. This will dump that to a file. Unicorn's pretty cool in that it gives you the listener Ruby to just spawn a listener, and it will give you the PowerShell attack.txt. So just to see what that looks like, this is a complete one-liner. So we've got PowerShell here, which will execute nicely on the target. I've previously copied this to a Windows virtual machine. So when the time comes and our listener's ready, we're going to execute that on the target just to save some steps. Now we've got a payload, we need to set up a listener. So back to Metasploit, we're going to use exploit multi-handler. We're going to set the payload to Windows. Interpreter reverse HTTPS. We're going to set the port, L port 443, set L host 192.168.3.10. We're going to set exit on session to false, and we're going to run that as a job. And you can see the HTTPS reverse handler is running on our target. Now we're going to need to move to our Windows machine. So I'm just going to show you here the Windows box. If this resizes nicely, cool, fit gets now. So I did two examples here, one of which is directly running the PowerShell command, and one of which is using the IEX command to download and execute the PowerShell from Pastebin. So for this example, I'm going to run both. We're going to run PowerShell. Now, just to note, I've disabled Windows Defender. We can turn this back on in a minute and see if it catches us, which is highly likely. We've also got web_demo. So the web demo, again, like I said, that's the download from Pastebin. We've run that. We're going to get rid of our Windows view, and we're going to see on our attacker we've got session 1 and session 2. This is great stuff. So 2 sessions, as you can see, from our desktop user with Gary, misspelt because I am the typo king. What we're going to do now is look at the Autoroute feature. So this will let us not worry so much about ports. We're going to jump onto our session number 2. If I can type. We're going to just check the box, do a sysinfo command. Yep, that's running Windows 10 on an x86 interpreter session. We're going to dump its IP details. We can see here that this box is also dual homed. So we've got our connection that we're currently using, 3.3, but also it's on the corporate network. So now we're going to just check the Autoroute module. That should run its help command, but it hasn't. So let's just run Autoroute and actually create the route we want, 192.168.20/24. That's my bad. It looks that they're deprecated and we should use the run module. But as you can see, it's still working. We'll update the Git scripts to feature that. Adding a route to 192.168.20. This is great. We can now background that session, and then we can try a port scan from our box. So to use auxiliary scanner, port scan, TCP, set our hosts 192.168.20/24. Do you know what? For this, I'm going to just set one host just for speed. Set ports 80, 443, 3389, 138, 445. I will put 22 on there as well. Set the threads. And then we can run that. And here we go. We can see that port 80 and port 445 are open. You can obviously set the module options to give more verbose output. And cool, that module's completed. So we've got 2 ports open on that host from this position. One thing this doesn't let us do is interface with that target. Outside of Metasploit. So our desktop 192.168.2.16. It's not going to work, and just because I can't remember if this has got RDP enabled in that box, I'm going to just try and connect to 192.168.2.29, the domain controller, which has RDP enabled. So you have to use the Autoroute within the constraints of Metasploit. If we don't want to do that, and if I don't make too many typos, we can use the port forward command. So this requires there to be a session. So again, we can check our sessions. We've obviously got session 2 still. We can use sessions 2, port forward, add local port. So we're going to port forward port 80. We're then going to LP 80. Remote IP 192.168.2.16, and it's created a 80 to 80 connection. So just to be clear, the syntax of that is add L, which is the local port on the remote session, and then LP, which is the local port on our session, and then R is the IP address of the target that we want to go to. Then we can launch Firefox, browse to 127.0.0.1 on port 80. And as you can see, very slowly compared to our proxy chains config, we do have some TCP connectivity. Hey, and back to the super secret internet. So there are a few different methods of using pivoting techniques to attack a target if you have compromised either a Windows machine or a Linux machine and have some SSH access. Hope that's been useful. Any questions, comments, thoughts and ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments. Catch you next time. Cheers. Bye.